Hello guys, this is the SWTOR guy here, and welcome to a top 10. Now, in case you probably read the title, these are the top 10 hardest operation bosses. Now, thanks to the suggestion to Thomas Lee, decided not to do a top 5 for this because this is a really hard list to do all of the just thinking about all the bosses, which is really difficult to do. So that was just too much, so I decided to put a top 10 for this, just for a special occasion, and just do a top 10 hardest operation boss fights in Star Wars The Old Republic. So let's just get it on. Coming in at number 10 is the KP Karagas Palace 4th boss, so the Droid puzzle fight. Now, in case you didn't know how that mechanic works, I'm going to tell you a little bit shortly. Two guys need to stay up in the middle of control panels, and they need to control the droid to one side to another side, and basically the others just need to burst the heck out of that. They need to stay away from some kind of droids. They are just stun them and receiving too much damage from them, and basically you just need to do this all over and over again. The reason why this is pretty difficult is because the droid only receiving 100% damage when that fire or ice thing is coming to the droid. Otherwise, the droid is gonna reduce the damage to I think 75% or something like that. I'm not quite sure, to be perfectly honest. And that boss fight in general is just, first of all, it's really fun, and second of all, it's really hard. And back in the day, it was really hard as hell, but now nowadays is also really hard. Not that hard, but still, it's a pretty difficult fight. Coming in at number 9 is the Commandility 4th boss, so the city one, not Talos City, but basically you need to kill some kind of chief. You guys see it here, what kind of the boss name is pretty much. This is actually not just tactical, but it's gonna be a really group oriented thing. The reason why, because the boss in general is not a big deal, to be perfectly honest. You just need to defeat 4 ants, and after that burst the boss and just swap dons and things like that. The big thing is when you're going in to that city, because first of all, there's a lot of droids going, a lot of ads going around that city, and there is 4 groups that you need to kill in 5 minutes, I think, and those groups, you need to kill it in time. So there is 60 men, of course. If there is 8 men, there's 2 groups for each, and obviously these groups have different capabilities. So first of all, I know there's the blue team. The blue team, for example, they doing some kind of AoE stuff, so you need to move away, otherwise you're gonna die as hell. The red team is gonna do some kind of flame thing that you can interrupt that. The yellow one is not gonna do too much, and I think there's purple one or something like that, or green team, where there is a medic there or a healer droid there. Basically, you need to kill that, and basically there is 2 guys defeating it. If one of them just failing, then you need to start the whole thing again, which is, I think, really a big challenge. And I really love that boss, and I think it's really difficult to do it. By the way, before I'm going any further, these, of course, all what I'm talking about is, of course, nightmare, or at least hard if you're thinking about but definitely nightmare what I'm gonna go, because that is now the hardest difficulty, or still, yeah, the hardest difficulty. Coming in at number 8 is Terror from Beyond's 2nd boss, the Dreadguard twins. Now, that boss in Nightmare, in general, in story is not a big deal. On the hard, it's okay, it's kind of challenging, but on Nightmare, it's a pain in the ass. You need to kill that boss, and you need to burst a lot of damage, and also you need to go away to AoEs, and you need to do different kinds of stuffs. As a group, it's a pain in the ass. Like literally every time I tried to done that, it was like literally a pain in the ass. And basically, first of all, there is an order how you can kill them, and you need to defeat them in order. If you don't defeat them in order, that is going to be complete chaos and enrage and everything. So it's I'm not suggest you go that. And otherwise, if you just DPS one boss, obviously, or not obviously, but the other boss's health is gonna go back up to 100, so you need to start all over again. So first of all, there is like the standing dread guard who you need to kill first, and basically you're just doing lightnings and stuff like that, and AoEs at some point. The second two is gonna be like two bosses. The one is just basically tanking and putting some marks on the floor, and basically you need to go away. If you're getting that, you're gonna receive a ton of damage. And the third one is gonna be like the tanking or the marking one. Basically, at some point, he's gonna mark a random person who's just gonna follow like really fast, and the player is gonna be really slow. And if it's really close, then he's gonna die like 2 hits if the cooldown's up. So that is a pretty difficult boss fight, and to do it, it's a really hard and tough challenge. Coming in at number 7th is Back to Scum and Villainy and the puzzle fight, though, or the shadow boss fight. Now that one is also a pain in the ass, because the reason why, because a pain in the ass is there is a lot of first of all, there is 4 like rows coming out, and basically you going up to like some kind of control room, and you're receiving a coin each time you're defeating a champion NPC. And as soon as you defeat that, basically you need to choose which droid out of those 16 you gonna remove. And if you done at least 8 of them you can remove. And if you can remove some of them which cost 2 coins, but some of them are which cost 1. And each droid have different abilities. So for example, one of them is a berserk one of them is an AoE one, or one of them just gonna be like a burst DPS one, doesn't really matter, or one is gonna be like an explosive one, something like that. And that thing, just in general, just to thinking about which droids coming up and things like that is really, really difficult. And to see like a perfect set, it's you sometimes, or we sometimes back in the day, reset it and go back, reset it, and things like that, until we have a proper set to go and try to kill the boss. Because if you had like 3 berserks one in the front row, you cannot remove that. Otherwise, that is just gonna be a pain in the ass. But it's still a really fun boss, but it's still a really, really one of the biggest difficulties in the game, like really big challenges in the game. So if you hadn't done yet, try to do it at least normal mode, because it's a hell of a fun thing. Coming in at number 5th or 5 is the Ravagers, the second boss. So Ravagers second boss. I don't know the name of that ugly thing, but basically that boss is, I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say it again, the pain in the thing, but it's just a nightmare to go against. Like, there is so much stuff. He's doing AoE, you need to go and you need to kill lands, you need to go and put the oil down and things like that. There's a lot of stuff going on in that boss fight. And to operate 60 men for that, for example, it's a really hard thing to do. But for 8 men, it's not that big of a deal. Of course, it's a big of a deal, but like you have some time and space to do that, because the boss is doing AoE damage and a lot of stuff there. I cannot describe that, but I can say that is a really good boss fight in terms of like difficulty boss fight. It's just really, really incredible. And speaking of Ravagers, coming in at number 4th is the Ravagers last boss. Now the Ravagers last boss Corinthia, something like that. Basically, uh, she had a pet, and basically you need to kill the pet first, which is not that big of a deal because there's just gonna be two phases for that, and basically the pet is doing some kind of AoE thing which you need to move away and stuff like that, and as soon as you've done that, the boss is gonna go away to another area of the ship, and the boss is gonna do some kind of drag abilities and just burst damages which you need to heal up and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff what he is doing, and it 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 was just really difficult, and the only reason I can say this is hard mode, yeah, because Nightmare for this is not even out yet, and I'm not quite sure. I think they said there will be no Nightmare modes for Temple of Sacrifice and the Ravagers, so it's still in hard mode. It's a nightmare, just like in hard mode. Trust me, it is really hard to do. I messed up the calculation or the numbers for the list, but you guys can see it in time. But yeah, so now the real number 4. So coming in at number 4 is Dread Fortress Brontes. Now, Brontes is, I think, if not one of the greatest nightmare bosses in the game. Like, that's how that difficult is. There is a lot of difficult bosses in Dread Fortress Nightmare, except the first boss, because that is not a big deal. The second one is a hell of a challenge. The third one is also not that big of a challenge, but it's also a challenge. The fourth one is wow, it's just nightmare. But the fifth, the Brontes one, is gonna be the most challenging boss fight. Basically, what is happening there, Brontes is spawning two of these, I'm gonna call it tentacles, but I know it's not tentacles, but I'm gonna call it tentacles. So spawning some of the tentacles, and basically you just need to avoid that, and there is some kind of electricity going through them and things like that. At the end, Brontes is doing a lot of like damage, a lot of AoE stuff. There is also like little lightning bolts coming up, just like on Eternity Vault. You need to go in them as soon as you got like 10 stacks or something like that to not receive too much damage. If you're going into 1 and 2, you're receiving a ton of damage, but other than that, not so much. If you're going for like 10 or 12, or I don't know how many stacks you need for that now. But basically, there is also, you need to do that. There's also Kefis there. There is also that and things like that. There's a lot of stuff you need to do while you also killing Brontes. And killing Brontes on Nightmare, which, wow. Trust me, not a fan. I actually never killed it. I think I done Nightmare only the 4th boss, but I'm not quite sure. Let me just check it out. Yep, I think I done all of them, all of the 4 Nightmare ones, except Brontes, which is like really difficult to do. And hopefully I can do it at some point, but at the moment it's not done yet. Coming in at number 3 is Temple of Sacrifice second boss, so basically the walkers. That walker fight is also in general is hell. Like, to be perfectly honest, all you need to do is avoid damage as much as you can. There was a lot of AoEs going to one to another. You need to go and DPS 2 of the walkers and defeat them at the same time, otherwise you're gonna have a ton of damage. You need to go and defeat some kind of shields, and you need to, so I know there's 1 or 2 players can handle it, but for 8 man, there is, for example, all you need to do is heal, of course, but also stay away from AoE and stay away from that. If there's one fail happening there, there's obviously a wipe, nothing else. On hard mode, it's a really big difficulty, and it's really hard. Not a lot of people done it, including myself. If you guys wanted to check what I done, on the Ravagers or the Temple of Sacrifice. Let me just show you how much I done on the Temple of Sacrifice. As you can see, I done the 60-man story modes, and I done only the first boss on hard. Nothing else. Like, I couldn't even start at 60-man at all, which is really, really difficult to do. Same goes to the Ravagers. Okay, I done maybe the second boss, yeah, because somehow I done it at a miracle. But other than that, there is nothing else. I'm gonna show all what I done at the end, but that is just a nightmare to do, and I highly not recommend if you don't want to lose friends, to be perfectly honest. Coming in at number 2, the Nova, second boss. Firestorm, or Firebrand and Stormcaller, something like that. 2 tanks, basically. Now these 2 tanks, now if you're going for Nightmare, prepare yourself for a lot of trouble. If you're doing it for 60 men, prepare for more trouble. Basically how this works. 8 groups, eight groups are splitted, and they need to, so I'm gonna explain to 60 men. Obviously they need to burst the tanks. The tanks is doing 2 kinds of damage. The one person, they need to go, a lot of persons actually need to go into the tanks or near to the tanks. The others who are not, basically like ranged or healed, they're gonna receive AoE damage, and they're gonna put it at one place. And that is not a big deal, but that is just the easiest part. Now the second one is the Firebrand thing. The Firebrand tank is doing a really big like burst or really big fire, how is it called, like not AoE stuff, but it's an ability that gives you so much nerf and so much debuff. It's a really big debuff actually, and you will get like instant death. But the Stormcaller tank is doing like a lightning color thing, and basically 2 players getting it, and if there's any players near to those players, obviously they are just gonna die. Like there is like an instant damages and things like that, and the healers need to heal through. And that was just the first phase. The second phase, if you're doing it for 60 man, there is 4 ads coming up. Now the ads are putting a shield on to like an airstrike to not receive that airstrike, and obviously you need to go into the shield to not receive too much damage from that airstrike. Now here is the catch. The main NPC who putting the shields down, you can also kill that, but you don't want to mess with that, because if you're killing that person, the shield is gonna destroy it. So you can't do any AoE and any kind of these things, because the ad at some point is gonna just die. But that is that. And also the tank, while we doing the shield thing, the Stormcaller player who's tanking that, he's receiving an AoE damage which he need to put all around the area. And that was just the second phase, and then restart everything again. How is that? Pretty incredible. So you need to do, for 8 mans as well, you need to do a lot of stuff. You need to do a lot of stuff to finish this, like some kind of operation, or just this boss, because the others are really hard as well. Don't get me wrong, Kefis is a hell of a nightmare. The third one, the puzzle one, is also pretty difficult. The second one, I think, is just one of the most difficult boss fights you can have in the game right now. If you're trying to doing it, just first of all doing a story and hard for at least 3 or 4 times until you're getting into nightmare. That's my guess, to be perfectly honest. But that is not the most difficult boss fight, I think. Coming in at number 1 is Dread Palace, the Dreadmasters. Now, these bosses, like what we have on the Dread Palace, is also pretty difficult. Like the first one is really hard. The second one is not that kind of a hard thing. The third one is, wow, it's just so many friend lost thing. The fourth one is pretty decent as well. Or actually, the fourth one is the really hard one. The third one is like hard as well, but not that. But the last boss, the Dreadmasters, is, oh my god. How many things you need to care away, and how many like things you need to watch. Like for example, all the masters are going to same health, and after that the other two who's just gonna revive die, and after that you need to go away, check out the debuffs, check out how many things you got. Oh my god, that is just wow. Now, I don't want to talk that too much because that is just what I can't done at some point. Now here is what I done so far. Obviously I done the Eternity Vault and Karagas Palace, everything. I done everything for that. If you're going Explosive Conflict, I actually done Nightmare, so as you can see I done it, but back in the day this was like bugged at some point, so I couldn't like receive this achievement at some point, but I got these, so I need to redo these 16 mans at some point, but I don't know when. Of course I got Eternity Vault and Gragas Palace. Scum and Villainy. Now Scum and Villainy is what I done on 60 man hard, but I never done it on 8 man hard, to be perfectly honest. I only done until here. This one was bugged at some point, and this one is actually I never done it on 8 man hard. On Nightmare as well, I only done the 4th boss on hard mode or Nightmare mode. And on 60 man Nightmare I actually done this, but I don't know why is it not here. Next one is Terror from Beyond, which I actually done everything except this one, which this is where I quitted the game. So obviously, but defeat the Terror from Beyond Nightmare mode under 2 hours, and I got that. But I need to do, the reason why is because this, but obviously I need to do the 60 man Nightmare at some point, so that is gonna be a hell of a big difficulty to do. Now next one, Dread Fortress. As I said, I done everything except Brontes on Nightmare. Same goes to the Palace. I didn't done 8 man Nightmare or 60 man Nightmare for these are the same except except the color, but I didn't done those. Ravagers, I show that. I only done hard mode second boss. Same goes to, I think, Temple of Sacrifice. No, I actually didn't done the Sword Squadron. So yeah, that's that. That was my personal, I think, top 10 hardest difficult or hardest Operation Boss fights in the game. If you know, or like, just let me know in the comments below what is your like hardest boss in the game. Let me know that. I want to hear that as well. And I'm sorry this is like a really long video, but this is like a top 10 and I want to share my opinions and everything about it. So yeah, hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, smash the thumbs up, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.